What is going on? You are listening to TAGSPodcast, aka Talk About Gay Sex Podcast. This is episode 304, and I'm your host, Steve V, alongside Jeremy Ross Lopez. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. A little hungover, I hear?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Fun weekend. Joining us, of course, tonight is Kodi, Maurice, Doggette. I love the three names you're giving me. How are you?
Yes. Hello, darling. I'm doing well today. I'm doing great. It's a gloomy Monday. I thought it was Sunday for a second. Oh, my goodness.
No, don't get it twisted. Sunday was gorgeous.
Yes, it was.
I don't know how it was in Massachusetts, but
Yeah, it was like kind of shitty here. The rain already got here.
Okay.
Yeah, so a drizzle came by and it was like in between sunny and rainy.
Yeah, and here in New York, it was gorgeous. I know,
Yeah.
Kodi, you were working on music.
Yes, I might have been doing a little something. You know what I'm saying?
Anything you can share at this point?
It was such a great experience. I actually shot a video on Sunday, and
You were the love interest, yes?
I was the love interest. I had my shirt off. We were doing a damn thing. We simulated a little bit of sex. My mom was like, "Are you doing porn?" I was like, "No."
More importantly,
OnlyFans,
what did
right?
Joe think of this? I mean, I know it's all acting and all that,
It's all acting. Yeah.
But what did your boyfriend think of this?
There was some kissing that was involved, but it was in acting, you do a little like a pet kind, like you do your grandma, basically.
But how far did you go? Because, back in the day, I watch a lot of old movies every so often when I just want to zone out. And back in the day, the whole thing was no tongue. If you look at some of the old black and white films, you can totally tell it's like two people putting their lips pressed up against each other and just moving them around, and it's so like not the way people really kiss. Couldn't be more like banal and icky than a real kiss. So
Yeah.
but now I've noticed they kind of do. Sometimes I've noticed real, like the L Word I watch on Showtime, they're showing the tongue, child.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Oh, for sure. I think at one point a tongue might have gotten, but it wasn't from me. It wasn't from my perspective. It wasn't from me to anybody else. It was from somebody else to me, and I had to. He's very respectful, the artist that I worked with, so I just had to. As I let him know where my boundary was, and then he's very respectful. So that was that.
Yeah,
no more tongue after that.
Yeah, and the reality of those things, I'm sure you can attest, is that they're so clinical because you're just really trying to work with the director to get the best shot, and
Exactly.
it's not at all like what you're trying to achieve. But
it wasn't as sexy as people think it is.
No.
Yeah.
And I was out and about in New York, and I love when the weather's perfect in the fall. It's not too hot, and everybody, I was just so looking at everybody, like so many beautiful people. It was just swivel head city for me, and I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. But today it's rainy, a good day to record. And so I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp are all down. Did you guys notice that already?
Oh,
yeah, I have noticed that.
For over 6 hours, they have been down, and no one seems to know if it's based on a whistleblower that came out. According to Mark Zuckerberg's personal wealth has fallen by more than $6 billion in a few hours, knocking him down a notch on the list of the world's richest people after a whistleblower came forward and outages took Facebook Inc.'s flagship products offline. But no one knows really if any of it's related to any of these things going down. And a lot had to do with the whistleblower claiming that Facebook essentially knew that what they were putting online particularly could cause harm to teenage girls' mental health and misfortune, but based on things that they knew. So in other words, all of us really, if you liked something, you would potentially get things. We all know how it works on those platforms. If you like something, you're going to get more of those ads in your feed, which could
Mm-hmm.
potentially be harming to you. And we've talked about it on this show before. If like I tend to not spend very much time on there because I notice, as Kodi, you and I were going to talk about it on an upcoming show about body dysmorphia. And we all know in our
Yes.
LGBTQ world that body image plays a huge part in how we, kind of develop. And I always think of our young LGBTQ world as like maybe we're getting to 2.0 now in the education of a lot of things. And I think it can be detrimental in so many ways. And it turns out that Facebook knew a lot of what they were doing. And so that's
Yes.
one thing. No one can really speculate right now if it has anything to do with, because Facebook owns obviously Instagram and WhatsApp.
Yep.
The only sad thing I can think of is that like people use WhatsApp a lot for communication. And so for that to be down, that's kind of a big deal. Don't you think? I mean, did you guys try it and notice that it was down?
I did, and at first I was like, "What the hell is going on?" Like, you always think that it's just your phone,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then I'm like,
right. Like, what the fuck is going on with my phone?
and then I'm like, "There's not really anything that I need to see, anyways." And then I just switch back to work and TV in the background.
I'm curious, do you guys, because Facebook I don't really use that much anymore, and I learned for a while there for our show that kind of pick a social media to kind of, we only have so much time and we don't have like a social media person working. It's me, you're looking at him, you're hearing him. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it is, they say, is pick one. That's why I'm always saying DM us at TAGSPodcast.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so for me, Facebook doesn't always get a good return, and I could care less about it. It's been more like nonsensical to me at times. I don't know what's your guys' feeling on that. And lastly, before I hear you guys, I was my friend's friend. She just got a scholarship to NYU on a dance scholarship, and she's super super talented, 17 years old.
Yay.
And I asked her what do you use, and she's like TikTok, mostly Snapchat, and lastly would be Instagram. But she did not mention Facebook. What's your guys' thoughts on it, Jeremy?
So I pretty much just use Instagram, but I do sometimes scroll through Facebook, and it ends up being like so many ads at this point that I just become uninterested quickly. So I definitely spend more time on Instagram stories, looking at that, and then also looking at TikTok.
Yeah, Kodi, what's your thoughts on it? And what do you use? And
Yeah. So initially, when it went down, I was like, "Oh my God, did I forget to pay my bill?" That was my first thought. But
delinquent Facebook.
right. So afterwards, I just went to Twitter. Those are my two primary ones. I use Instagram the most, and then I go to Twitter. I don't really like post on Twitter a whole bunch, but I do scroll through Twitter and I see posts by other people, and I don't really engage very much on Twitter. But that's where
Well,
everybody
can
went
you
after
repost?
Instagram went
I
down.
tag you half the time on Twitter, and you do not repost. So
I
I don't
should
know
have
what you're
known
talking
that was
about.
coming.
Uh-huh. The other thing about Twitter, like when I have to be careful because on Twitter I do follow some porn stars or OnlyFans guys on there, and you have to
Uh-huh.
be careful if you're scrolling around like on an airplane or in a cafe because you might be going, you've got, I don't know, somebody from The View, and then you've got like ABC News, and then you've got like a big dick in your face
And then
getting
a
like
DP going down.
DP
Yeah.
going down, and all in the same news cycle Twitter feed, and it's like, oh, hello,
Hold
that's
on.
hold on, very scary. Yeah, well, all right, we'll see what's going to go on with all that because I'm sure people are freaking out
Oh,
right
you
now
know it.
because it's the longest I think it's been down, so we'll have to see on that. Okay, well, there's some good news to report. Bretman Rock makes history as the first gay Playboy cover star. And he's
Yes.
Filipino, you guys. For Playboy
Yes.
to have a male on the cover is a huge deal for the LGBT community and for my brown people community. And it's also surreal, said Rock on social media. He's an influencer, essentially. Playboy has revealed its first out gay cover star, social media influencer, Bretman Rock, and he's 23 years old. on the October digital issue of the magazine, because apparently now it's all digital. And in the full Playboy Bunny gear he wore, lingerie, platform shoes, bow tie, and bunny ears. And Playboy
Wow.
wrote in a statement on its website that Rock has joined the ranks of Kate Moss, Dolly Parton, Kylie Jenner for donning the legendary Playboy Bunny suit. So he's amongst those people. And although he's not the first male identifying star to wear the suit, he is in good company of the likes of Steve Martin, Ezra Miller, Paul Rudd, Johnny Carson, Burt Reynolds, and Flip Wilson, who have all borrowed elements of the trademarked costume, some even going as far as to wear the full suit, the company said in a statement. And he's become only the third man to appear in the cover of Playboy, following Puerto Rican singer, who I love, by the way, Bad Bunny,
Oh,
rapper, yeah, and Playboy founder Hugh Hefner.
okay.
Playboy further clarified to The Advocate that The Rock is the first male to appear on the cover in the iconic suit. So it's a big first, and I love that he's Filipino American. And I don't know if you guys had a chance to see the cover. Jeremy, did you get to see it yet?
Of
I'll post.
course, I absolutely loved it, and he's wearing Versace platforms.
Oh, I knew you would know. I knew you
Yeah.
would know. How about the corset?
Love it. I love his
Yeah.
hair. I love all of it. It's a really cool shoot.
Cody, what do you think of this being first? Because Playboy, we have to talk about, yes, they've had like Bad Bunny. I love how they had Bad Bunny on Playboy, a fun. They're embracing, obviously, because if you think about it, Playboy used to be for straight,
Uh-huh.
straight white males. And obviously they've had to change with the times like everybody else. I mean, obviously we know Anna Wintour and Vogue changing with the times, putting non-modelly people on the cover and getting
Mhm.
Hmm.
flack for it. You have to change with the times. But for Playboy, which was known as sexual, to stimulate white men, I think in
Mhm.
general, this is kind of a big deal to put a Filipino gay male in a bunny suit on the cover of this iconic magazine.
Oh, for sure. It just goes to show that finally people are starting to recognize that there's more than one type of beauty, and Playboy is this is boundary breaking right now because they put a man on Playboy. That's astronomical to me. I can't believe it. Makes me want to go out and support them right now. So I'm all for it.
You just got to go online, yeah, and get it, because it's all out there. And I think that's kind of the cool factor too, because I think Playboy back in the day could go under the radar. And I remember it used to be somewhat naughty for even straight men to get it, although it could be found in your local magazine store.
Hmm.
Now you can reach so many more people. Okay, maybe not Instagram right now, but you can reach so many more people virally and make a huge difference. And I think as we continue to say on this show, we continue to see great examples of pushing the boundaries of our LGBTQ growth. But we also, I mean, I could counteract this story with the amount of hate crimes that are on the rise for our LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, it's interesting how we continue to see both happening in unison. Does that surprise you, Jeremy, when you hear that there's as many hate crimes, there's so many hate crimes on the rise, but then we're pushing our boundaries on another front?
Yeah, it's not surprising because I think there's just so many ways and platforms to get out and spread negative energy and negative thoughts and vibes and all that shit. But I also think that we are so progressive in so many facets that it's really great to see. And I'm very happy that it's everything's becoming more normalized and less of like shock value.
Me as well. Yeah, I just think it's so cool. I will post this if you haven't checked it out already on TAGSPodcast.com. There's a little video that goes along with it of him strutting around, and he looks so awesome on it. And congratulations to him, because wow, what a great feat.
Yes.
Well, all right. We have to talk about Alex Gardner. Alex Gardner is a gay man. There's a great advocate story. I will post this on TAGSPodcast.com to read the whole thing. But essentially, he is a gay man. He says that gay men living with HIV had keyword cultivate sexuality while encountering stigma, rejection, and criminalization. He writes that my new sexual frontier was teeming with opportunities, but it also meant this is kind of when he first came out as HIV positive, but it also meant navigating stigma and fear within our community. There are persistent and insidious beliefs that people living with HIV are stupid, reckless, or whores. Studies show none of that is true. The advent of gay dating apps made it easier to find other pos guys, but it also meant dealing with explicit HIV phobia in men's profiles with requests like clean, UB2. Having to regularly confront stigma can have a profound impact on one's mental health and sex life. And I really like this story, and I was drawn to it because of that last line. Yes, we all know U equals U now, and we all are in an age of PrEP and Truvada, and I think there's less stigma, but I don't know that we've dealt with a lot of perhaps maybe the mental health that if you were positive 10, 15 years ago and beyond, the stigma that you could still be dealing with. He says that there is also the structural stigma that still needs to be dealt with, such as HIV criminalization, because in the US, there's over 30 states that still criminalize HIV in some way, shape, or form. It's difficult to overstate the detrimental impact of such policies. And for many, fear of arrest and prosecution infects all parts of their sexual lives. Lastly, gay men living with HIV have had to cultivate a sexuality while encountering stigma, rejection, and criminalization. We've also had to navigate feelings of guilt and shame around their status. Yet through it all, we persist, he writes. We pursue a fulfilling sex life and explore meaningful connections between HIV positive men, and in doing so, create a sense of community. Great article that he wrote. Um, it's interesting. Do you think that that viewpoints have changed over time about HIV status, Kodi? And what are your thoughts about when do you think that we're really dealing with some of the mental impacts that some people living with HIV could still be dealing with?
I 100% think that the every societal what people think in society about as far as what the stigma that HIV positive people face is changing, and it's growing, especially with the U plus U equals U,
Right.
undetectable equals untransmittable. That has made leaps and bounds as far as changing people's minds about HIV. I know personally, I have dated people who were positive, and it has grown since back in the 90s when I first started dating people, because I dated someone in the 90s that was HIV positive.
Yeah, so did I. I want to hear
Yeah.
your thoughts on that. How did you obviously didn't run away from him,
I
which I know
didn't
a lot
run
of
away
people.
from him, but he ran away from me. So
Oh,
it was scary for both of us, but we faced it head on, and then eventually it kind of just petered out because he wasn't ready to deal with it, and just the stigma and the things that of being positive, what he was going through mentally, and he just decided to leave. And I mean, I would still like to see how he's doing right now, or but I don't even I have lost contact with him. So
yeah, it's interesting, Jeremy, because I was even just recently, I was talking to a longtime friend of mine who stayed with me all weekend. We worked together back in the early 2000s in the event industry. And I was telling her a story. I was trying to get my new medication of Truvada delivered using capsule, which I use as delivery service. And she's like, and our other friend was with us, and she's like, wait a minute, are you HIV positive? And almost the horror, not horror, but the nervousness in her voice, that the fact that I could potentially be HIV positive
Mm-hmm.
really permeated me. And I said, no, it's preventative so that I won't hopefully become HIV positive. And so that's why I take it. But just the sheer way she said it,
Like
and I know
the
she didn't mean
worry.
it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I did not clock her on it or anything like that. I just think that even today, I mean, I guess if somebody did tell you, you would say that. It just sounded a little fearful in her voice. And not only did I have to calm her, no, not, but what if I was? What would that even mean? And
Right.
do you know what I mean? And have you ever been in that moment? And do you think we're changing at all with some of our viewpoints on some of this stuff? Jeremy?
I think that it's slowly changing, and I think that it has changed over time, but I think that it still has a ways to go. I think that it can only go up from here, and I do think that more people are educated, and I think having things like just little things like the Discovery commercials on TV
Yeah.
and stuff like that does help people that wouldn't likely know about it. Like, so say a heterosexual couple, they would have no idea about it, and maybe things like this definitely help like destigmatize something that's been so ingrained or frowned upon in the past.
I agree. And
Great
you know what's
point, Jeremy.
interesting? Yeah, I think what's interesting about that is, yeah, I think if you're a progressive person watching Pose, or you're watching RuPaul Drag Race when it's on Logo, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
see, and plenty of studies have shown that a large hetero female population watches RuPaul's Drag Race,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
they're
Mm-hmm.
getting the message.
And
Or
even
progressive
the
people.
stars that have come out as HIV positive, like Billy Porter and
But that's all
JVN,
like
Jonathan
that's
Van Ness.
new too, though.
Yeah.
This is all new. So you know what I'm hearing and what I'm thinking right now is that I think a lot of change of stigma is happening within our own community, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So for us to I know you said, Kodi, you dated somebody in the 90s. So did I. And I
Yeah.
remember him telling me he actually said, I had a couple people that I dated, and one of them used to use the term, I got the bug.
Oh my
Did you ever
goodness.
hear that? I got the
Oh,
bug.
that
And they
hurts my
said it,
heart.
yeah, and they would say it to me as a divulgence of almost looking at me to see what my reaction was going to be. Like, am I going to like literally bolt?
Yeah.
And I remember both times I was like, no. And I don't know if it was just me being naive or just, I think I grew up so much with HIV and fear of getting tested and knowing that it probably could be me at any point in time. So how could I then judge anybody else? And I was like, no, we'll just be safe and continue
Mm-hmm.
practicing safer sex practices. But what I've noticed is that our community is changing within the community, the LGBTQ. And then if you happen to be progressive and watch Pose or some RuPaul's Drag Race, you're getting the message, which is cool. But the larger aspects, like I know my friend, she doesn't watch any of those, and she would be concerned for me. And that's why her tone, even when she asked me, "Oh, are you HIV positive?" And almost like I just stated it like that, was a little jarring. And I know she didn't mean it in any way, and I didn't take any offense to it. But I still
Mm-hmm.
think that shows me that we still have an, a little bit more road. And
A
that's why
ways to
articles
go.
like this are important to come out. Of course, it's in the Advocate, right? But I think maybe some of these ads should be on more mainstream platforms too. And we need more and more reminders of how,
Definitely.
yeah, normalize this
Yeah,
because you
it's
can live.
strange that it is all of the HIV advertisement and as at least combating HIV and preventing it is aimed at gay people at large. Why isn't it directed? I don't know if it's directed more at straight people. I'm not a straight person. I can't speak for them. So,
Well,
but
yeah, that's an interesting point. And I think most of the advertisement has been if you're if you become HIV positive, and a lot of it oftentimes is towards people of color, there
Yeah.
is hope out there. There is, talk to your doctors, and if you don't have insurance, there are means and ways and to get people that you can live a healthy, fruitful, long-standing life just like everybody else. And so I
Amen.
think those ads are coming in. We're also talking about the pharmaceutical companies, which are trying to get their medicines out there, which have money to gain, right? So let's not kid ourselves why they're throwing it out at the pharmaceutical companies do not care whether a heterosexual community buys into their
Right.
pharmaceuticals because they're not going to bank off of that community.
Hmm.
This has to would then come from almost PSAs that would have to be funded, and that's probably why we're not seeing it on other ones. Don't be fooled, it's all about the pharmaceutical companies, big business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, which I guess it's sad, but good in other ways. I don't know. It is what it is. But I will post this article of Alex Gardner because I think it's a really good. It's good. I really enjoyed this. All right. They say variety is the spice of life. They also say that Drizzly is like having the world's largest liquor store in the palm of your hand. So why not combine the two things they're constantly talking about with Drizzly, the #1 app for alcohol delivery? Compare prices on a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits. Always find what you want, like my favorite Casal Garcia Vino Verde that I'm often drinking when we record TAGSPodcast. Get drinks delivered right to your door in under 60 minutes, no travel, no hassle. Drizzly connects you directly to their local liquor stores to compare prices for the best deals and access the widest selection of beer, wine, and liquor. So go check out Drizzly now by downloading the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. Use promo code SPICE5 for $5 off your first order. That's drizzly.com and use code SPICE5 for $5 off.
Almost 90% of women have cellulite. And guess what? It's not their fault. We don't choose cellulite, but we can choose a different way to treat it. Meet Quo, collagenase Clostridium histolyticum, AAES, the first and only FDA-approved prescription injectable for moderate to severe cellulite in the buttocks of adult women. This non-surgical treatment is injected by an aesthetic specialist in 10 minutes or less. Individual results may vary. Do not receive if you are allergic to any collagenase or ingredients in Quo or have an infection at the treatment site. May cause serious side effects, allergic reactions including anaphylaxis, and injection site bruising. Seek medical help right away for any signs of allergic hypersensitivity. Tell your doctor about all your medical conditions if you have a bleeding condition or take medicine that prevents clotting. Most common side effects include bruising, pain, hardness, itching, redness, discoloration, swelling, and warmth at the injection site. Ask your doctor about all possible side effects and for product information. If you're ready to get to the bottom of your cellulite, learn more and find a specialist at quo.com.
Let's move on because there was an interesting article that a Reddit thread that caught my interest, and I want to hear from two tops, primarily tops, on your opinion. I will weigh in on my side. And the person writes, for hung bottoms, I'd like to put myself in this category. Thank you very much. In your
Get it, girl.
experience, do you think that smaller tops feel intimidated by big dick bottoms? Interesting thread. Somebody wrote, I've only been told it turns them on. Same for me, even more so since I'm always hard when being fucked. If you're easily intimidated by a bottom with a bigger dick, someone else wrote, then you're not a top. Or
What?
you're just being too self-conscious. True. Somebody else wrote, being self-conscious during sex could happen with a number of things and is very common. On and on. Then somebody else wrote, then they should turn to bottoming. So again, I mean, as somebody that would fall maybe in this category as more bottom and, you know, I don't know about hung bottom, but whatever. In your experience, do you think that smaller tops feel intimidated by bigger dick bottoms? I don't think so. The people I've been around with, I've either picked equally the size as me or larger, but Kodi, you and I talked about
Yeah, we did.
the finger, what do we call it?
Finger penis.
Finger penis. And I said 2 of my longest relationships were with finger penis guys, and I had some of the best sex, and they did not ever feel intimidated at all. I think it has to do with confidence.
Oh, for sure.
But what's your guys' thought on this, Jeremy, when you hear
I
this?
definitely don't think that it's a thing, and I also think that it takes like a certain level of confidence to look past that. So I think it helps when you don't dwell on what you don't have and you work with what you've been given.
Ooh, get it.
I can distinctly remember, Jeremy, you and an Eagle friend of ours that we all worked with and knew that didn't like big dicks very much. Like, you didn't even really care
No, I
about it.
just
You're more of an
no,
ass
but
guy.
yes, but that comment that I made is in reference to asking if it matters to me.
Okay.
So the answer is it does not, but any size, it doesn't matter. I'm just not like that's not the body part that I like to focus on
Okay.
someone else or like give tons of attention to, but that's just my personal opinion. But it doesn't matter to me if it's 3 inches or like 12 inches.
Okay. I could
And
see
you know,
that.
the funny thing about that too, to your point, is that when two people are connected in that sexual chemistry that two people bring to the bed or wherever you're doing it,
Mm-hmm.
is that it shouldn't really matter. And I think when it does matter, it means that one of the two of you or both of you are getting in your head on that. But animalistic sex or throwdown sex shouldn't ever matter. And I think that's what I was alluding to on a recent podcast about 2 of my longest, even though I've been told or I've labeled myself a size queen, what I prefer,
Mm-hmm.
2 of my longest relationships that I've been in that I had great sexual relationships with happened to be more on the finger penis size, and it didn't matter. And I think it was because we didn't get in our head about it. Neither one of us. What are your thoughts
Mm-hmm.
on this,
I
Cody?
was just about to say, let me weigh on in because
Way on in. Get on in here, girl.
because I personally have been intimidated by a bottom who had a bigger penis than me. It only happened one time because I am very blessed in that area. So,
Okay. Thank you very much.
I mean, but
Well,
I
okay,
did.
so what happened?
So I definitely got because it hadn't happened as that often. When it finally did happen, I got into my head and I became intimidated, and I thought, "Oh wow, I wonder if he's enjoying having sex with me." I just started thinking about it way too much, and I ended up not having sex with him.
You know what's interesting about that, and that brings up almost a sidebar topic to this that we should explore a little bit more, is that when you do get in your head, and the only time I've gotten in my head, I probably shared this we have over 300 podcasts, so I know I've
Yeah.
shared this with you, but one of them is the only time I've gotten in my head and it affected the sexual experiences is with 3 ways. And not
Oh.
3 ways where I was like the guest star of a couple, not
Uh-huh.
those kinds, because typically you're kind of the desired one that's
Yes.
brought in. So you can almost do no
Amazing.
wrong. You just have to it's like an acting part where you just have to pretty much show up and show your face and
Mm-hmm.
smile and you're good. And cut, we're wrapped for the day. And and it's great. But when I've had 3 ways with 2 other single people, and I've gotten in my head where, oh my gosh, I think the other 2 guys are vibing off of each other, whether they were or weren't, or
Ah.
whether I created this in my head so that I really was separating myself from the situation. I have gotten in my head, and then almost a couple times I hosted at my place and I just exited out of the situation and let them have their fun. Not like I was storming off at all, please,
Uh-huh.
but more like I don't know that I'm really feeling this vibe, and I'm too in my head, and I'm letting myself get intimidated by this, and I don't feel comfortable. And I just went into like I have another area in my apartment where I could just like went and let them have fun, and then it was all good. But I realized those are the times I've been intimidated and gotten in my head. Have you ever,
Mm.
Jeremy, felt any intimidation in sex with maybe not the larger dick, but anything
I
else?
definitely have in a threesome specifically when the dynamic is just a little off, or like you said, there's like one that likes one more than the other, or you join a couple and
Right.
they start to get pissy that one is all over you, and it's just so that's definitely a realm that I've felt awkward in, and definitely brought out like maybe a little bit of insecurities just with when you're comparing yourself with two other people
Yes.
in the act in the same moment. It's definitely easy for it to become like awkward, and they're just not my favorite threesomes in general.
Yeah, because back to the topic at hand, big
Yeah.
dick bottoms. I mean, it can be really hot to see, like, if you're in the mirror and one of them's looking at. I mean, I like watching that in porn. I always think that's like a really big turn on to see a big dick bottom. I don't know. I just think it's kind of hot to me. So, yeah.
Big dick
Were you going to say
bottoms
something
are
else, Cody?
sexy in theory. No.
In theory,
That was a
I'm
joke.
sensing that you don't really. Yeah, in theory,
I'm
I'm here
just
to tell
joking.
you.
That was a joke. It happened one time. I don't know if it would happen again because I've kind of worked through all of that and being
You saw some
intimidated.
therapy or something?
I was like Dr. Goldstein.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So, but I've definitely looked inward as far as that's concerned, and kind of taken root of where that was coming from. So,
I hear you. Okay. All right. Hey, Tags listeners. Craving for more tags? Hungry like I am? Well, now you can unlock exclusive Tags content. I'm talking about our weekly Tags After Show and our twice monthly Dark and Dirty Show. Now you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. You'll get a notice each week when new episodes are dropped exclusively for you. So what are you getting from this exclusive content? Well, you're getting a weekly Tags After Show where the conversation continues with hot gay sex topics in a more relaxed, behind-the-scenes, more intimate format. Our twice monthly Dark and Dirty Show will often feature special guests like my co-hosts, but gets a little darker and a little dirtier as we reveal our sexcapades to your exclusive ears. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe now to unlock exclusive Tags content and know that you'll be supporting Tags Podcast to continue delivering the quality of Tags Podcast you've come to love. You can unlock this exclusive content by going to TAGSPodcast.com and click on the link Tags After Show. Thanks for being a supporter and continue having hot gay sex. Time to move on. And this next topic, I want to get you guys to weigh in because it caught my interest. It's entitled, I hooked up with a dude half my age, and now he wants me to be his daddy. So they write, on a recent Friday night out in San Francisco, I enjoyed a hookup with a really attractive 24-year-old guy. We had a great time, fun sex, and really hit it off. However, I am more than twice this young man's age. So more than twice, if he's 24, 40, late 40s, right?
40.
The next day, or maybe even like 50. The next day, he asked me out on a proper date. My concern is that I'm old enough to be his father. His only concern, however, is that I'm not old enough and that he mostly dates daddies in their 60s and 70s. What should I do? Lastly, wrote twice his age. And it's funny because a friend of mine, one of my best friends, was telling me that he got this is a couple years ago. He got friended on Facebook, which you can't go on right now, by the way. He got friended by this guy that was really hot and was like, "Hey, Poppy," and he would incessantly reach out to him. And I said, "So what did you do?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he was like Latino and like, I don't know, like 21 and super hot. Well, he decided to do a deep dive into who this person was because he didn't know him. And I don't even know if they had any mutual friends. He does a deep dive in and realizes that all his friends are like old, like 60 plus.
Wow.
Not old. I shouldn't say that. I take that
Yeah.
back because 60 is not old.
Old is a state of mind.
Sorry, I really take that back. I just meant in the 60 plus region. And my friend was going to be the youngest of that area. And he thought, wait a minute, am I just like the latest flavor that this guy? But to this day, I think my friend responded and was at first and was like, oh, hi. Because I mean, if you get, if you're somebody's really hot and they reach out to you, you're going to be like, oh, hey, how you doing? But then you do a little deep dive and you realize, wait a minute, am I part of this whole thread of do I fall into the category? And am I the youngest of, you don't want to be, nobody ever wants to be that. Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like when people are like, you realize, oh, do they only date Latinos? Am I like just the latest flavor of the Latino flavor? No one ever wants to feel that way. I think that's my opinion on that. But interesting. What's your thoughts on this, on
Fetish.
Kodi,
I've
when you
been
hear
looking
this?
for that. Yes, I've been looking for that word for the past like 3 minutes. Nobody wants to be fetishized.
Thank you. Yeah, what's your thoughts on this, for this guy that wrote in that was asking, entitled it twice his age, Kodi?
Well, it hasn't. The writer in hasn't mentioned that the younger guy has asked for any money yet. So I don't know if that's the case. I've dated a lot of older men in my day, but I date younger men as well. My boyfriend right now, he is younger than me, but he's very self-sufficient.
Why do you think I came to you first?
There we go. He doesn't ask me for any money. I am nobody's daddy right now. I mean, I am in some ways, but I'm not anybody's sugar daddy. Let me say it like that. I think he should just date him and see what happens. You never know what can evolve from a relationship or what someone has in mind or in store. So just kind of see where it goes. And if he's not interested in being anybody's sugar daddy, don't be anybody's sugar daddy, and know where your boundaries are.
I mean, it's an interesting thing to point out. I don't honestly think that this person probably was. There is a whole slew of younger men that are not looking for money. They're just actually attracted to older looking gentlemen. And I just think that's great
We
if
are
everyone's on
hot.
the same
Hello.
page. Yeah, but sometimes they want him, like, I think this guy writing in is almost like, am I almost too young for that? Because it sounds like if we did the math, 24, twice his age, he's probably 50. Most of this guy that he's going on the date with are in their 60s and 70s. It's not, they can actually like that. I mean, recently I was watching a show and they were referring to zaddies. You all know what zaddies are, right? Like a hot.
Yeah, me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's not you, Kodi. I don't think. I recently had a guy over the summer he was a musician, and turns out he was only 30, but he was a musician, right? Classical music, and we hit it off, and he's on tour, but he's been reaching out to me here and there, like, I want to see you. But the next morning after we had fun, he commented though on my glasses, which are these, they're just my reading glasses, my regular glasses. Because they're near and far, and they're aviators. And he was like, "Oh my God, I love your daddy glasses." And I'm like, "Daddy glasses? They're like kind of wretched." And that like hit a chord in me. We are a little sensitive, I don't think, if you want to be. But then Jeremy, a while ago, I for fun, like at MLA, Mid Atlantic Leather, a BDSM festival, bought a daddy hat. And I don't know why I did. I just bought it and put it on. And you were like, "Don't wear that. You're not a daddy." What are your thoughts on all this whole daddy and age group thing that you're hearing?
I say just go out with him. It's harmless. And I say have a good time. And I mean, he's not asking you to marry him. He's just asking you to go out on a date. And I think even if you're like nervous that he's going to be sprung on you or whatever, I mean, you're both grown men. So, I mean, you have control over the situation. And I think it sounds like it can be fun.
You know what I just reread in the piece that I read to you guys is that when he writes this, his last sentence is his only concern, meaning the 24-year-old's concern, right? His only concern, however, is that I'm, quote, not old enough, as he mostly dates, quote, daddies that are in their 60s and 70s. So, what do you think about that when somebody specifically tells you you're not old enough, you don't fall into my category? I would say, like, not date this guy then, because you're right, Jeremy. In normal situations, if people find each other and chemistry hits, and I would be willing, if I met some like the 30-year-old, I'm 50, yeah, because to me, even though he made that funny comment about my glasses, he's a musician with like
Right.
classical music. We had a lot in common, and he's kind of an old soul. I could definitely date 20 years younger than me, and maybe even 20 years older than me. Who knows? I
Yeah,
would.
and it does sound like this specific person is a little hung up on the age thing.
That's exactly.
And
Yeah.
so I think making a comment about him not being old enough is a little bit of a red flag. But like I said, if there's enough chemistry, maybe he can deter the whole age thing, but they'd have to see how it goes. You know what I mean? But I don't like the age conversation, and I just don't find it to be like top priority in my opinion. And I don't really care what people's ages are. I'm attracted to the person. You know what
Me
I mean?
here.
Me
I
too.
agree.
I think
I
it's
mean, I
because
definitely have a limit. Mine's like the youngest is probably like 25. I don't normally go
last
much
week you
younger
said
than that.
21, but
Well, I mean, 21 if I'm trying to rob the cradle, but I am 30, so it's also just the the conversation is different with like the bigger age gap, and some people are an old soul, and then you, so it really just depends on the individual person.
Yeah, I was going to say that maturity does not always come with age, and age does not always come with maturity. You know what I'm trying to say. It does not always equate. So whatever age
Hmm.
they are, as long as they're mature and they have a nice outlook on life, and they don't are not asking more of what you're willing to give, then that is where the
And I
line
do
is.
find the age conversation, like focusing so much on the number, is such like a lame, boring thing to discuss.
like talking about work.
Yes, exactly. Like that same uh what do you do? I know that
Yeah,
it's like a normal icebreaker, but it also it just isn't usually that interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, in some cases it is, but it's just I like things like what kind of art do you like, or what music do you listen to and stuff like that. So I just feel like it's
exactly.
not something to dwell on.
Yeah,
And
like
just
Biggie
because
says,
this
what your
person had
interests are.
yeah, and I do think in this instance, because the guy, they always say, Maya Angelou, people show you who they are. When the guy said, you're not really old enough, he's kind of telling him,
Hmm.
essentially, in this particular story, he's kind of telling him, you're not really old enough. Then I would say, then skip it, because or maybe pinpoint him, or maybe go on a few more dates if the guy's willing to. Or did he say that because that's a cutoff, like you're really not old enough, and maybe he has his, like we were talking about Cameron Diaz, that she was talking about dating recently on a recent podcast, and she said, really do figure out, if on the first date, if someone's right for you, and whether they have all the criteria that you have. And I think most of us, Kodi, we were like, that's too much, right, on a
Yeah,
first date.
that was
Maybe
a little
this is
hard.
a deal breaker for the 24-year-olds. And then maybe pinpoint him, is this a deal breaker, or are you willing to kind of like go on a few more dates because the sex is good and we're enjoying each other's company? If the answer is no, then but
Right, then there's your answer in itself.
yeah. All right. Well, good luck on that. And lastly, Instinct Magazine recently, with their staff, shared some stories of their very first gay bar. And I will post this on TAGSPodcast.com, but it got me thinking about my first experience in your guys's. And I'm just wondering, because going to your very first gay bar produced, at least for me, a lot of nerves, anxiety, but at the same time, excitement of something new. And
Oh
all of those
yeah.
emotions were bubbling under like a drug that of the unknown and what could be, and it was just so exciting. I will say, going to your first gay bar, at least in my opinion, had to be with somebody you could trust and a friend. Jeremy, do you have a first gay bar story, and what were your feelings like?
Yeah, so mine was actually it was a club, and it was Van Dam at Greenhouse. So it was
Oh.
the gay Sundays, and
Oh.
I was 18, and I had
Oh,
just
here we
moved to New
go.
York, and had a fake ID, of course,
Yes.
and I just like was mesmerized by the space and everything, because when you're like young and gay, and you're like, you have a very, I felt like my fantasy in my head, creative senses were like a lot more heightened when I was younger. And so
Right.
walking into that space of everything being sparkly and all the crystals hanging from the ceiling and the LED lights in the walls.
Stimulation.
Yeah, and then so many good-looking gay guys and a bitchy door girl and all that kind of stuff
Yes.
was like so new to me that it was like funny, and it was amazing, and I just really, really loved it.
Would you say you had more anxiety or excitement?
No, definitely excitement.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Kodi, what was your thoughts on your first bar experience
So my
coming?
first
Yeah.
gay bar was Private Eyes in Norfolk, Virginia.
Private Eyes. Okay. Is it still there?
I don't think it is
Oh,
because
by the way, Jeremy, yours is not there anymore.
No, it's not. It's
Yeah.
closed, unfortunately.
yeah. But I've been in Greenhouse plenty of times back in the day, and it was amazing.
The gay Sunday nights were just such a blast.
Epic.
Yes, so much fun. But Private Eyes was so much fun as well, and I just remember going out. I was part of the LGBTQ uh, Gay Straight Alliance in my college, and I just went with a bunch of those people to. They took me
Oh,
out to
what a
private.
great grouping to go out with
I
for this.
know, right? It was so much fun. They were so much fun, and I miss those guys. I need to reach out to them on Facebook if it was working. But it was one of the first times that I could go out and just let my hair down and feel safe and just be my authentic gay self, and it was amazing. So that's the feeling that I get every time I go into a gay bar now. So always chasing that feeling.
Well, thank you for sharing that story, and I can happily report for all you Facebookers, it looks like Facebook is back up. So it looks we
Oh.
were almost 7 hour mark, and it's back up and running. So they figured out something. I don't know what, but just checking on Instagram, because of course when you hear this, yep, Instagram is back up. So obviously when you hear this, you'll know that that's when we recorded it the night before. Interesting. We'll have to get the lowdown on what went on, keep up on that. My bar story, my first bars was in the early 90s, and it was in Berkeley. I went to UC Berkeley, and I had befriended a guy that was bisexual. He had a girlfriend, and he was so hot. We had sex, and then he introduced me to his girlfriend. Wah, wah. But honestly, the three of us were thick as thieves, and she became one of my best friends at the time. And the three of us ran around, and she accepted his bisexuality, and we had some great times. There was a bar, a like a bar in Berkeley on Shattuck Avenue, and if somebody remembers it, DM, you can now DM me at TAGSPodcast, because we're back up and running. DM me, because I was trying to rack my brain what it was called. It was a really cool cavernous bar on Shattuck Avenue that wasn't really dance bar-y, but it was kind of big. They ended up closing midway through the years and then opened up in another place. And I don't know that it's open there, even there now, but I remember being so nervous, but like a lot of people have talked about, excited at the same time. And because at the time I trusted my friend who had been there a couple times before me and who was a little bit older than me, I felt like, see, that's the thing. You have to go with you have to trust at least the person that you're going with,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And I had that trust, and I think I was 20 years old, so I had this fake ID, and I think part of the nerves were, oh my God, I've never used this fake ID. And it was his old, because we were both Mexican American and we were both brown. And so I just inherited his. And like I said, he was 2 years older than me. So, but at that time, you're brown, it's you, right? I mean, So I used it and got in. So I was nervous about that. I was nervous about going into just anxiety. But then I felt like I was in a safe zone with my friend. And then, I mean, oh my God, just I was elated and couldn't wait to go back. I mean, it became gay bars like that at that time became this destination, right? When Monday rolled around, you were so ready for Saturday night again, right? Like, how can we
Sure.
recreate this again? And of course, you can never recreate it
Yeah,
again.
not your
But
first time at least.
not your first time, but you can have other experiences and equally. And yeah, didn't take
Yeah.
me long to become a go-go dancer after that.
Ew.
Here we go, right? Yeah. Oh, but so fun, right? Walking down memory lane on that.
Definitely.
Thanks for sharing. That was a lot of fun. All these things will be on TAGSPodcast.com, and go back to your social media, you guys. You can always follow Jeremy Ross Lopez on Instagram at JRossLopez, JRossLopez. Follow Kodi at Mr. Maurice, and DM us if you want sex or relationship advice, or just say hi, weigh in on a hot topic at Tags Podcast. And in the meantime, guys, thanks so much. Continue having hot gay sex.
Almost 90% of women have cellulite. And guess what? It's not their fault. We don't choose cellulite, but we can choose a different way to treat it. Meet Quo, collagenase Clostridium histolyticum, AAES, the first and only FDA-approved prescription injectable for moderate to severe cellulite in the buttocks of adult women. This non-surgical treatment is injected by an aesthetic specialist in 10 minutes or less. Individual results may vary. Do not receive if you are allergic to any collagenase or ingredients in Quo, or have an infection at the treatment site. May cause serious side effects, allergic reactions including anaphylaxis, and injection site bruising. Seek medical help right away for any signs of allergic hypersensitivity. Tell your doctor about all your medical conditions if you have a bleeding condition or take medicine that prevents clotting. Most common side effects include bruising, pain, hardness, itching, redness, discoloration, swelling, and warmth at the injection site. Ask your doctor about all possible side effects and for product information. If you're ready to get to the bottom of your cellulite, learn more and find a specialist at Quo.com.